Cool. Okay, welcome to Brihat Bhagavatamrta. Beginning to read a very interesting section, at least for us. A lot of us are pujaris. So it's speaking about the tattva of the deity of the Lord. So let's offer some prayers to Srila Prabhupada and we can begin. Nama Om Vishnu Pataya Krishna Pistaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swam Dinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavadi Pashtachara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Excuse me, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so Nova Sahachari has enthusiastically got her hand up. Thank you. So we finished off last Thursday on text 204. I thought we'll just go back to 202 so we can see the context because it's just beginning the discussion. So we'll just go back and we'll just read from 202 so we've got an idea of how this conversation has been introduced. Okay, so without further ado, Mother Sahachari, you can go with 202. And we're just reading the translations here.
Okay.
Because the Sanskrit's a bit cumbersome for most of us. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Sri Gopakumara said, I then asked, my Lord, divine deity forms of the Supreme Godhead, like Lord Purushottama, the master of Niladri, are present on earth and you consider them embodiments of eternity, knowledge and bliss. Commentary. Gopakumara is very much attracted to Archana. 1 second. The devotional process of deity worship. He has enjoyed the benefits of Archana in Jagannath Puri and on several higher planets in the universe. He has also heard about the glories of this process from various authoritative scriptures. Narada, however, created a doubt in Gopakumara by telling him that the deities of the Supreme Lord are just another kind of incarnation, indistinguishable from other avatars. Earlier in this chapter, texts 155 and 157, Narada said, There are those who playfully assume the appearance of deities. Each of these forms of the Lord has its own activities and names, yet all of them are full in eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Though manifesting variety in substance, they are eternally one and the same.
Yeah, so Pacha Vigraha. Okay, continue with 203.
Can you? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Text 203. The one personality of Godhead, whose body is always Sachidananda, merciful, enacts the pastimes of being present in various places in various forms. Commentary. To increase his own pleasure and show kindness to his devotees and to the whole world, Lord Krishna appears in Puri and other places as deities like Lord Jagannath. His deity form appear not only on earth but also on other planets of Bhurloka and in the higher and lower planetary systems.
Yeah, I think last week there was, I think someone asked a question, is there deities in the hellish planets? I don't think so, but there's in the lower planets, but not in the hellish planets. There's not much deity worship going on there. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Text 204. What then could be wrong with worshipping those forms, disregarding everything else? I would think that no matter how this was done, it would bring great benefit. Commentary. Why should the Lord's devotees be criticized for neglecting other spiritual disciplines, dharma, karma, yoga, and so on? Worship the Lord's Archa Vigraha. It seems logical that he should gain greatly by such dedication, since all other devotional practices are included in the worship of the deity. Text 205. But why, therefore, do we hear differing opinions about this from the Puranas? The Puranic statements coming as they do from the mouths of exalted souls cannot be less than authoritative. Commentary. Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas make comments that apparently depreciate the value of deity worship. For example,
yeah, we can hear now an example. Yeah, let's remember. This is where we left off last week. Carry on. Yeah.
A devotee who faithfully engages in the worshipping the deity in the temple but does not behave properly towards other devotees or people in general is called a Prakrata Bhakta,
Oh,
a
yeah.
materialistic devotee, and is considered to be in the lowest position. Bhagavatam 11:47. One who worshipping the deity of Godhead in the temples, but does not know that the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is situated in every living entity's heart, must be in ignorance and is compared to one who offers oblations into ashes. Bhagavatam 3:29-22. My dear mother, even if a person worships me with proper rituals and paraphernalia, if he is ignorant of my presence in all living entities, he never pleases me by the worship of my deities in the temple. Bhagavatam 3:29-24. There are other statements of Shastra such as Pratima Manda Buddham. The deity is meant for persons who are less intelligent, come from the mouths of great sages. And the verses cited above are the Supreme Lord's own words, retold from the mouth of Sri Shukdeva. As a matter of principle, the words of trustworthy authorities, such as the Lord and his pure devotees, should be accepted as true. Therefore, Gopakumara is puzzled. Any knowledgeable person who surely agrees that the deity forms of the Lord, like Sri Sankarsana and others, that appear on the various varshas of Burloka, including the deities of the Sri Ranganatha and Jagannatha in their transcendental cities on earth, are directly the personality of Godhead and should be worshipped with faith. But the words Pratima, image, and Archa, worship deity, are often used in scripture to criticize the narrow vision of immature devotees, and these special incarnations of the Supreme Lord, Sankarsana, Ranganatha, and Jagannatha, are also present, themselves as Pratima and Archa. Does this mean they are inferior forms? Gopakumara hopes that Narada will clear up his doubt.
Mm. So, just to kind of summarize what's being brought up here, it is a fact that specifically worship of the Lord in his deity form is very beneficial for the Kanishta, for the beginner devotees. But also, as we will probably hear, the deity forms of the Lord are worshipped by perfected devotees. And actually, in the Jaivi Dharma, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes that actually only the Uttam, the topmost devotee, can actually worship the deity properly. Yeah. But yeah, so but to make advancement, see what's being described here, I think it will come out that so it mentioned here, a person who's this first verse here, persons will be very respectful, very on reverential, very well behaved, and in regards to worshipping the deity. But Krishna is situated not just, he isn't just a deity, he's manifested in everyone's heart. So a higher level of God realization is to have perception of God everywhere, not just in the temple, but also outside the temple, and to appreciate actually every body is a temple of the Lord because he resides within everyone's heart. So therefore, one treats everyone with great respect. So here, like this verse, kind of devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple, but does not behave properly towards others. It's called a prakrata bhakta. And here, if they don't, one who worships the deity, but does not understand that deity, the Supreme Lord is in everyone's heart, must be in ignorance. And his worship of so-called ghee lamp, etc., is just like offering oblations onto ashes. So it's not very pleasing to the Lord. Yeah. So that may indicate that worship of the deity is lesser. And here it's like the deity is not being criticized, but those who worship the deity is being has been seen as perhaps not very advanced in devotion. So you've got the idea why this question is being asked. So what is the actual position of the what's described here, Fatima and Archer? But I think as we know, I think we're familiar that actually that we have examples of greatly exalted devotees who worship the deity. One of them is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would go to see Lord Jagannath. Yeah, and then we have the Rath Yatra festival. And Rupa Goswami has his own deities, Sanatana Goswami, and all the Goswamis. Yeah. Any questions or comments? All right, let's see how this unfolds. So that's the question. That's the doubt. Or that's so Gopalkumar's asking Narada. So and interesting also that there is deities in all different planetary systems as well. I never really thought of that before, but yeah, there's deities in the higher realms, and if there's deities in the higher realms, then there's temples in the higher realms, and there's devotees who are worshipping those deities in the higher realms. So it's not so deity worship is not just going on here; it's going on all over the universe. All right, let's read on. Yeah. So please, anyone has any comments or questions, please feel free to ask. And Model Mongol has his hand, so you can read Model Mongol from 206.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. There was also
Please.
Sahachari Devidasi Mataji. I don't know if she wanted to read because my hand it was later on.
No, she has
I
just read.
finished reading.
She has just read,
Okay.
and you come in, and now.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So Narada Muni is the first spiritual master for the path of worshipping the deity of the Lord. Upon hearing my question, he stood up, embraced me in extreme ecstasy, and answered in this way. Commentary. By composing the Narada Pancharatra, Narada long ago became the original teacher of the method of deity worship as pure devotional service. In this verse, the word marga means path, and since it is derived from the verb mrig, mrg, to seek, it can only be understood to mean the goal of endeavor.
Yeah, I think we've heard of the Narada Pancharatra. Isn't
Yeah.
it quite familiar with that? Comes up a few times. Prabhupada refers to it in quotes. So yes, you continue with 207 and 209.
Sri Narada said, the deity form I have mentioned are all equal to the original personality of Godhead. There is no need to even mention the glories of worshipping them. Person who worship the Lord's deity, be it ancient, new, or even concocted, provided their worship the deity as being directly the Lord himself, will not fall down from their religious status or be otherwise at fault, even if they neglect their prescribed duties and other such principle. Rather their behavior should be considered exemplary, and such deity worship should be regarded as exalted devotional service, yielding the best of fruits. Interesting.
Okay, yeah.
Commentary.
Let's just read the commentary, and then because the commentary might
Yeah.
just explain what I was going to bring out. So
Even irregular worship of the Supreme Lord in his deity form is all auspicious. Because of the strength of bhakti, worshipper who fail to observe all the prescribed varnashrama duties are not to be considered fallen from the standard of civilized behavior, nor should they be considered unequal for material
unqualified.
sorry, nor should they be considered unqualified for material reasons, nor faulted for imperfect knowledge of the method of worship. Ordinarily, offenses committed in ritual deity worship bring infamy in this life, and hellish punishment in the next. But worship of the Lord's deity performed with faith and devotion is transcendental. Persons who practice devotional service are excused for their lack of material qualification. If person doing devotional service to me happen to fail to execute some of their karmic duties, their millions exalted sages
30
carried out
million.
30 million exalted. I need to just a little bit make it a bit bigger, sorry.
Hmm.
30 million exalted sages carry out those obligations on their behalf. Mama, this is tough one. Ooh.
Yeah, so just I read that again. If persons doing devotional service to me happen to fail to execute some of their karmic duties, 30 million exalted sages carry out those obligations on their behalf. Okay.
This is a tough one.
No, it's a good one. It means you got
It is good, but that shows you how much responsibility you have and how big obligation you have to actually carry your deity worship properly, because someone else will care for you and will
yeah, I think what's being explained here is that there's lots of duties to perform according to your situation in Nirvana and ashram. Yeah.
yeah.
According to your specific situation. So one may not come up to the mark, one may
Yeah.
fail, and actually one is bound to fail because there's so many duties to execute, and it's
Yeah.
not always easy. There's so many different factors that come into play in, for instance, in a family life. Now, generally, there would be a reaction to one degree or another in failing to execute one's prescribed duty for one reason or another. But if someone is a devotee and they're engaged in devotional service, which may happen to be made focused on the deity of the Lord, but they're falling short elsewhere in their life, then 30 million exalted sages carry out those obligations on their behalf. So how they
Wow.
do it, whether they directly do it, and that's not given, but anyway, 30 million exalted sages carry out those obligations on behalf of that devotee.
So then they make maybe life a bit more easier to the ones who are around us.
Well, yeah, so then one is not burdened by
Yeah.
reaction. One is not burdened by a dharmic reaction. You know? In other words, one's under the shelter of Krishna. Yep.
Very
So
empowering, I think. Very empowering in a way.
yes.
Should
All
I
right.
continue?
Yeah, just finish this.
The general opinion of saintly persons is that devotional worship of the Supreme Lord's deity is always praiseworthy, and exalted Vaishnava Acharya consider deity worship a principal activity of pure devotional service. The primary meaning of the word bhakti is seva, service, and service to the Lord in the form of the deity, or in the form of the deity worship includes elements of all methods of bhakti yoga. This worship leads to the highest perfection of life, for beyond accomplishment in the four ordinary category of the human endeavor. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Such
Okay.
wow.
Yeah. Any
Thank
specific
you.
questions or comments here? So we have Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaran, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So it's one of the 9 angas of pure devotional service. And interesting, as we're hearing about the glories of devotion, of deity worship here, it's not the principal means of advancement in this particular age. It's the chanting of the holy name. So I'm sure that will come out. But in order for us to come to a offenseless stage of chanting and come to the mode of goodness and to regulate ourselves, us who are otherwise may be very much affected by the modes, then deity worship has been introduced in this age. so that it will help to steady our restless mind and help to bring us to the world of goodness, so that we can chant the holy name. I'm sure that will be brought out. But here, putting that aside, the glories of worshipping the deity is being described here. So it's not ordinary. Yeah.
There is an echo there. Sorry for interrupting. There is some
Please,
echo somewhere.
from me?
Or someone is talking in the background. I can hear some.
So please, devotees, you can check if just put yourselves on mute unless you're going to ask a question or make some comment. Yeah. Okay, that's a bit better. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry for that.
No problem. Thank you. Right. Well, let's just, so I'm going to just look at this verse again because something came up here for me. There is no need to even mention the glories of worshiping. That means it's unlimited. I mean, like, where do you begin? Yeah. Persons who worship the Lord's deity, be it ancient, and we have deities, which we have deities that go back thousands of years, new, or even concocted. Now, this I didn't quite understand. Concocted, because deity worship is not concocted, and nor is the deities that are worshipped. They are. We mentioned this morning in class. They are specific. Yeah, they are not mental concoctions. So perhaps let's.
Does that mean maybe the deity is made from a certain material, which it can be a little bit more like, I saw this Ugra Narasimhadev in a place, I don't know, in India, some temple, which is soft, and it looks like skin it has, but it's made of some sort of material. Is that concocted?
No, I don't think that's referring to that. I'm just looking at the word to word. Got here artificial kritiman. It might be. All right, perhaps we don't. It might be explained later on, new or even concocted. I tend to think the word is used in a different context than what we normally understand to be concocted. Perhaps we can't understand that.
Yeah, I just saw that. I looked it up just now, and it said a mixture of different elements and
really?
ingredients.
That's the one.
Where did you look that up? In the English dictionary?
I just Googled it, and it came up in Oxford. Oxford language.
So Mother Mongol was correct.
Yes.
A mixture of various ingredients or elements. So you can have it. I think it means like a concoction of various things, or it can mean negatively as well, I think.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting.
There is a deity made of poison, more than 7 poisons. It's a deity in Tirupati, and it's this little Murungan temple, and they created the people, how you call it, who have there is some sadhus who build this deity, and they transform from poison the deity when they abhishek constantly, and it becomes nectar, and healing properties they have from this deity.
That sounds pretty fantastic.
Sorry for the digression.
All right. Thank you, Molavanga. That's kind of helped me understand that a bit more clearer now. Yeah, so according to different elements and different, the deity form may be brought together using different various elements. All right, let's, Modern Mongol Puri, could read another couple of verses. And if anyone
I'm coming now.
else out there would like to read, we have you lined.
Continue reading, yeah?
Yeah, 2:10.
One can reach perfection by honoring even a blade of grass, provided one sees within it the presence of the Supreme Lord, or by just once uttering or hearing even a faint semblance of the Lord's name. Commentary. One who understands that in a blade of grass the super soul is present along with the Jiva soul, and who therefore honors the grass by watering it and bowing down, is in fact performing devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Such a person easily attains liberation or whatever else he desires, and then some results are obtainable from just once pronouncing or hearing. Hearing even a dim reflection of the Lord's holy name.
That's namabas, okay? A dim reflection is namabas. Okay, so I move back forward again.
Very powerful.
Okay, have a go, read 211 as well.
211, yeah? How then can one find fault in worshipping the deity in whom the Lord personally appears, who evokes remembrance of the Lord, who has been consecrated by mantras, and who is the receiver of all kind of devotional service? Commentary. When the deity of Lord Vishnu has been properly installed with the avahana, invitation, mantras, and worshipped by devotees who have put aside all misconceptions that he is a statue of wood or stone, such a worship is faultless. Even logicians have to admit the existence of inconceivable potencies in special worldly things, gems, mantras, potent medicine, and so on. If even material objects act in ways undetectable by mundane senses and intelligence, then why can the Supreme Lord, in his own appear as he wants? The Lord's deity helps the conditioned soul in their meditation by allowing them to see the Lord's form. Those who visit the deity see the beauty of all his limbs simultaneously and are often effortlessly transported to the ocean of devotional ecstasy. Simply by worshipping the deity, one performs all 9 processes of bhakti yoga: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the Lord's lotus feet, worshipping, offering prayers, becoming the Lord's servant, becoming his friend, and surrendering everything. Wow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, I hadn't thought of that as well, but as this is a fact, if we're worshipping the deity, then we're obliged to say the names of the deities. And in the worship of the deity, actually, Jiva Goswami explains that all the activities of bhakti need to be accompanied by chanting of the holy name for them to be successful. So within our archon process, for example, the pujari will be chanting the Maha Mantra, will be chanting the Lord's names while they're doing the worship. Yeah. So that means they're chanting, that means they're hearing. And serving the lotus feet is quite direct, isn't it? You are serving the Lord's personal form, so you're definitely serving his lotus feet. And then also in the part of the worship is that you, part of the worship, one said there is a part which is called the worship, where you worship, where you bathe the deity, or you offer items, and then you offer worship. Ganda, Pushpa, Dhupa, Deepa. That's called the worship aspect of the puja, where you offer after you've dressed the Lord, then after you've bathed him and dressed him, then you offer Ganda, sandalwood, pulp, Ganda, Pushpa, you're worshipping with flowers, Ganda, Pushpa, Dhupa, incense, Deepa, and then Naivedya. Yeah. And then after that, you offer prayers, mantrahinam, kriyahinam. And even before you begin the worship, there's prayers, which some of you, I'm sure you know, there's prayers that you recite, where you invoke meditation upon the Dham, where the Lord is situated. So you, first of all, you meditate upon yourself as being the eternal servant of the Lord. Then you prepare for Manasa Puja by reciting mantras which invoke the holy Dham within your heart and mind. Yeah. And then you say mantras where it's it's a smaladam for worshipping the form of the Lord. So you meditate upon the form. So, for instance, for Lord Chaitanya, you meditate upon Navadvip, then you meditate upon Lord Chaitanya himself. And then once you've done that, then within your mind, you offer the items of worship before you may actually do the worship externally. That's called Manasa Puja. Yeah. And that helps us that plays a role, because when we're dealing with deities, sorry, I'm going into a bit of a deity worship seminar mode here.
Please,
But,
please.
yeah, but when you're worshipping deities, although they're completely spiritual, they have taken on the form of so-called material substances. So, for instance, for Gornitai, you're dealing with brass, so you're dealing with material elements. Yeah. So if you do the Manasa Puja, it helps to remind you that the Lord is completely spiritual, because you're worshipping within the mind the form of the Lord. So that means when you're dealing with him, which he's taken on this form of brass, for instance, then you still have in your mind that the Lord is spiritual. You understand? It helps you to keep that in mind. That's one aspect, one of the reasons we might do Manasa Puja before we actually worship the Lord. Yeah. And then you're dedicating yourself to the Lord, becoming his servant and his friend, and surrendering everything. Yeah. All right. Any questions or comments on that? And this is quite a discussion of late amongst within the deity worship ministry. I mean, it comes up often. I mean, I won't go into it too much. But for instance, it says here, when the deity of Lord Vishnu has been properly installed with Avahana mantras. Now, Avahana mantras is like this. Is where you invite the Lord like this to come. Now, please come. You see, when a devotee is doing a fire yagna, they will invoke the form of Agni, a specific form of Agni, to come as the fire. So also when you're installing deities, then there's Avahana, and this is the Avahana mudra. You can see my hands. So you invite the Lord, then please come and please stay here. Yeah. Please give us your blessings. Yeah. Please show us your lotus face. So invoke like that. And sometimes if you watch carefully fire yagnas, you see the Purohit will be invoking these Avana and reciting mantras, etc. Now sorry?
Sorry, how does it call when you cement the deity and is not allowed to move away from there? Because it's the same when in the morning when I go to the school, I invite the Lord the same way you show.
Yeah.
Because they are not cemented there. If I say correctly, cemented, installed forever there.
I don't know if I got the gist of your question. Deities generally, the service should be Nitya Seva. Once you install deities, they are to be worshipped, Nitya. Generally, Vaishnavas don't worship temporary deities. Like sometimes for Durga Puja, they make these deities out of straw and mud of Durga. Then after the Durga Puja is finished, they throw in the Ganga or whatever.
In
Jamuna. So generally, generally that worship is done for material benefit. But Vaishnavas generally worship Nitya. Their worship is eternal. So once you install deity, now whether the deities are fixed or not, but the main thing is that they remain in that place and they receive the worship. Yeah, like our deities, Londonishvara. I mean, they're not cemented in; they're just standing on the marble.
Yeah, but I mean, you not move them away from there.
No, yeah, that's the idea. That's why Prabhupada didn't allow deities to be installed unless the property was actually owned. Prabhupada didn't allow deities to be installed in places that were rented or things like that. You know, it's Nitya Seva. So like we will die and the worship will continue. Nitya.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and that's why you have deities in India now. The worship goes back thousands of years. It's called Nitya Seva. But anyway, I won't go into the whole thing of it. It's perhaps not so relevant here, but Prabhupada never did any of this. Never did avahana. He never did elaborate mantras. Very simple. And even in the because the controversy is that some devotees are saying, for instance, if you got deities at home, then if you haven't done avahana, if you haven't said or if you haven't gone through the appropriate procedures which is given in a Hari Bhakti Vilas, then it's considered the deities are not there. The formal deities are not there.
So to be there, do you need to do yagya sacrifice, or is only for others?
This is a point I'm making. It can be, and there's an interesting example in the history of ISKCON where Krishna and Balaram were installed, and Prabhupada was obliged, because of local custom, to invite Brahmins from South India to do an elaborate prana pratishtha installation. But as far as Prabhupada was concerned, and he writes this in the Srimad Bhagavatam, all that was needed was the chanting of the holy name. As Prabhupada said, all you need is to chant the holy name, you know. But just to, he was obliged because of local superstition, local custom. Yeah. So installations can be done simply, or they can be done elaborately. Most people don't have the means to do elaborate installation of deities, especially at home. So therefore, one may begin on a specific day, one may invite Vaishnavas, one may do an abhishek of the day when you start worshipping your deities at home, And basically the deities, the main thing that you bring forth the presence of the Lord is not just ritual. It's actually bhakti. It's actually bhakti. That's when and how the Lord comes. So even though one may be deficient in following all the rules and regulations for worshipping the deity, sorry I'm going on about this, but we've just been discussing this on Deity Worship Ministry. If you look into and if one may be amiss in the procedures which are recommended in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, if you have devotion, the Lord will be pleased to appear. So Prabhupada, he installed Londonishvara, and he just, used a baby bath and a ladle and put yogurt over the top. And the main thing was chanting a holy name. So the Lord, and now, is someone going to say that Londonishvara are not present because Prabhupada did avahana, etc., etc.?
They're more present.
Yeah, and if you look in if someone's doing avahana on all of these rituals, but they're just, if they have no devotion, if they're doing it just out of pride and they have no devotion, who's to tell for certain whether the Lord's going to be pleased to appear? Maybe getting paid. Maybe they're just doing the installation, and the one thing on their mind is the donation that they should get at the end. So it's bhakti that calls them, and Prabhupada showed us that. And if you look in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there's a chapter which is all about installing deities. And if you look at all what's needed according to Hari Bhakti Vilas, it's basically it's impossible for anyone in Kali Yuga to come up to all those standards for installing deities. So Hari Bhakti Vilas is. Anyway, any questions on that?
Something quick.
Sorry, anyone else out there? Sachari,
can I say quick something?
One second.
I can read.
No, okay. Go on, Madhu Mango.
What they install the Ram Lal, the prime minister. I think he fasted for 1 week to do the prana pratishtha, and they brought water all over the planet in pots. Even from Leicester came water.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah,
everywhere. 7 oceans and 7 whatever from everywhere they brought, so they can do the whole puja properly. And like it was
Yeah.
amazing. Just that's all I wanted to say. Sorry, I
Yeah.
will shut up.
So no problem. So like if you do have the means, then you should utilize your wealth and do that. If you have the means, that if you have the wealth and the resources, then why not? But the main thing that the Lord's going to come is the devotion. Yeah. So please don't let anyone, if anyone, there's an article going around saying, unless you've done the actual ritual, which is there in Hari Bhakti Vilas, then your deities at home are not present. And it's unfairly disturbing devotees' minds. So deity worship ministry is just writing a reply to that. Hare Krishna. All right. Okay. Sorry for that deity worship seminar sidetrack. So, Mother Lavangalatika, you like to read?
Yeah.
2:12. Yeah.
2:12.
Yeah.
Persons who properly worship Krishna in his deity form never disrespect Krishna's devotees, and if because of being absorbed in worship they accidentally do so, the devotees make light of such offenses and praise the worshippers. Commentary. Although worship of the Supreme Lord's deity is a powerful means of devotional service, its good effects can be completely nullified by offenses against Vaishnavas. Narada here assures Gopakumar that serious worshippers of the deity are spiritually mature enough to know that they must carefully avoid displeasing any Vaishnava. Moreover, if a careless neophyte absorbed in deity worship neglects or disrespects Vaishnavas, the Vaishnavas mercifully overlook the trespass and instead see only the worshipper's sincere attachment to the Lord.
All right. So that's how the devotees might have been neglected or disrespected in some way. So that may happen to us, but we should try to overlook it, we should try to overlook it and see the sincerity actually of the devotees. So that's, but the one side, but the other side is there. One must be, yeah, as that verse described earlier, that's kanishta. If one is not dealing with people nicely, not dealing with Vaishnavas or people nicely, then that's considered an offense. Yeah. What I'm going to say, yeah, and that's why worshipping the deities in that sense is very serious business, especially in temples. So that's why, obviously, that's another reason why it should just be Brahmins worshipping deities, especially in temples, because they should be expected to behaving in a Brahminical way,
Yeah, I think basically, I think everyone feels disrespected at some point or another, but I think it's
Yeah.
just Krishna's test. You just have to see it. Oh, this
Yeah.
is for my purification. I have to like rise above this feeling of feeling disrespected because actually, I'm here by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, and I'm in the association of Vaishnavas by the mercy of the Vaishnavas and my guru, and I have no qualification. So, and usually, actually, if you have a good attitude to that, usually you find that it wasn't anything at all. It was just like Krishna's test.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, thank you, Mother Lavanglaka. This is the mode of goodness. This is how what she's explaining. This is how we should internally. This is a internal disposition to being disrespected. And as she said, if we have that mentality, then it is a slight thing, and it's not worth getting offended about or in your head about or being revengeful about.
Yeah.
That's called material life. Sorry, you wanted to add something on that, Mother Lavanga?
No, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's So that's also I read somewhere else as well, and also in the Pancharatra Pradeep. That's why if those are worshipping the deities directly, and their behavior is not pleasing or is not nice, it can affect the whole temple. It can
Yeah.
have disaster effects on the whole community. If those who are interacting with the deities are offensive to the deities or to the devotees in general, then it could displease the deity, and that will have its consequential effects. It could do on the community of Vaishnavas. Yeah. So yes, you should be very
Yeah.
careful.
Excuse me.
But the thing is, you can expect to feel disrespected. It's like it's going to happen. It's not that you will go through Krishna consciousness without ever feeling offended.
Yeah. Bhagavatamrta sounds you're speaking from personal experience. Yeah. I think we all have that experience. And there's a wonderful example of that to the extreme of the Avanti Brahmana, in the 11th canto, isn't it? In the Avanti Brahmana.
Yeah, I've heard. I can't bring the story up to my
Yeah,
mind.
that story is quite amazing. He was a Brahmana, but he was a very miserly Brahmana. Didn't give anything to anyone. He was kind of embittered, and he had sour relationships with his family members and all the persons in the village, in the province. He was that type of person, wasn't liked very much. And one thing led to another, and he lost all his wealth. He lost everything, and he was destitute. Now, in that time when he lost everything and he became destitute, he had serious reflections on his life. And he felt so sorry and repentant for how he had behaved. And he decided at that point to dedicate his life to be a staunch renunciate and just meditate upon Krishna and just not have any home and just travel. So he had been, in one sense, that level of surrender and repentance had led to him becoming a great saint, actually. But that was just his internal disposition. Everyone else saw him as the same wretched person. And when he became a mendicant, they thought he's just becoming a mendicant and begging because he's got no money. This person is a cheater. So they abused him in so many different ways. And it gets quite graphic in the 11th canto. I get one example. They would pass urine on the food he was going to eat. They would spit at him. He would be disrespected in so many ways. But his attitude was that this is all the doings of providence. And he never felt antagonistic or revengeful to any of those persons who were abusing him severely, kicking him, beating him, so many things. And that's the I forget the verse, but it's a sannyasi. It's the verse that generally sannyasis will recite when they take sannyas. I forget it now. Anyone knows that verse? I could probably find it, but take too much time. But he says, I shall cross over this insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. This was approved by all the previous acharyas who are fixed in devotion. So I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience simply by remembering the lotus feet of the Lord. And that's the mantra that Lord Chaitanya was reciting in great ecstasy after he took sannyas. And when in the sannyas ceremony, they will recite this verse. So that's the story of the Avanti Brahmana. You can read about it in all of its graphic detail in the 11th canto. It illustrates the point that Mother Lavanga is bringing out here. Yeah, so we get plenty of practice. It's the nature of this world. We're gonna be disrespected. And sometimes, often when we speak about being disrespected, obviously, naturally, we think ourselves being disrespected by someone, but probably we also disrespect people as well. We're the ones that might give it out as well, being a disrespectful. So I'm not saying that's good, but we also on the giving, sometimes we might be on the giving side as well. But that we should want to change. We should not want to be like that. Anyway, I'm going off a little bit of a tangent here. But any comments for any of other devotees out there? If not,
Very good topic.
yeah, it's a very good, yeah. Anyway, we could go on, but that's why book distribution is good. I mean, I won't go on the whole book distribution thing here, but book distribution is good because people ignore you, people may have bad words against you, etc. Anyway, Hare Krishna. All right, so let's read a couple more verses. I think we're on 2:13 and 2:15. Is that correct? Yeah.
There are others, however, who concoct some new image and call it Lord Hari, but who actually see that form as different from the Lord. They worship with the idea that the deity is no more than stone or some other material substance, and they respect neither the devotees of Lord Hari nor living beings in general. Proud of their worship, they transgress the injunctions of the Vedas and the Lord. Then these foolish worshippers, the lowest of the Lord's devotees, do not obtain the promised fruits of worship. Commentary. When criticizing those attached to deity worship, the scriptures are really speaking about offensive worshippers who think the deity only an image of the Supreme Lord and not the Lord in person. Such idolaters consider the deity mere stone, wood, or metal. They concoct their own forms of the Lord, unaware that the authorized deity appears by his own plan, and they are oblivious to the presence of the Lord in his devotees, because such offensive worshippers lack proper respect for the deity and the Vaishnavas. Those worshippers naturally offend all living entities and violate the basic principles of the Vedas. Some Vaishnavas are free from the influence of the modes of nature, and others are still conditioned by goodness, passion, and ignorance. The offensive worshippers described in this verse are the lowest of the Lord's devotees. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11.247, they are called prakrita, materialistic. A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple, but does not behave properly toward other devotees or people in general, is called a prakriti bhakta, a materialistic devotee, and is considered to be in the lowest position. The scriptural statement, pratima manda buddhinam, the deity is meant for the less intelligent, refers to this lowest class of devotees who lack spiritual discrimination. They do not receive the benefits of deity worship described in the Shastras. One who worships the deity of Godhead in the temples but does not know that the Supreme Lord, as Paramatma, is situated in every living entity's heart, must be in ignorance and is compared to one who offers oblations into ashes. Bhagavatam 3:29-22. In other words, the personality of Godhead does not accept their worship. As stated by Sri Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers to Lord Nrsimha, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always fully satisfied himself. Therefore, when something is offered to him, the offering, by the Lord's mercy, is for the benefit of the devotee, because the Lord does not need service from anyone. To give an example, if one's face is decorated, the reflection of one's face in a mirror is also seen to be decorated. Bhagavatam 7.9.11. In this prayer, Prahlad describes Lord Nrsimha as the personal master, Prabhu of all living souls, and as Prahlad's own life and soul. Atmana Prabhu I am. Everything the jivas possess actually belongs to the Supreme Lord. Nonetheless, the Lord, as merciful as he is, rejects the respect and offerings of the jivas who are materialistic fools.
Well,
Janad
long purple. Let's just one sec. Let me see how long it actually is. Well, it's quite long. What's the time now? So I wanted to
it's only 2 minutes.
2 minutes. So let's just, so you just read up to here, isn't it, Mother? You just read up to here?
Yeah.
Here, yeah? We're on here, is that right?
No, the previous page.
Previous page, okay. So let's just, 1 second.
I stopped at he rejects the respect and offerings of the Jivas who are materialistic fools.
Okay, so I'm just going to highlight.
That's where I stopped.
Yes.
Yeah.
So next week we can pick it up. So I just wanted to bring out this, the actual verse itself. In the beginning, I was thought here. So now it's summarizing it quite nice. So what's being spoken of here is, yeah, just repeat this. When criticizing those attached to deity worship, really it's speaking about the offensive worshippers. So that's quite clear, isn't it? Those who think the deity only an image of the Supreme Lord, not the Lord in person. Such idolaters consider the deity mere stone. Yeah. Now I was reminded of a nice story that illustrates this point. And again, I ask you that story, if you can recall it. There's a story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of someone who, there's one person who had great faith in the deity, and another person thought the deity just to be stone. A story from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anyone can hazard a guess, as they say, or else I can almost see you going through your mind now through the Chaitanya Charitamrita, trying to remember. Perhaps it's the story of Shakshi Gopal. Now, we I won't go through the whole story, but we know that the Brahmin, the elderly Brahmin, and the young Brahmin, both the elderly Brahmin and the young Brahmin, they had great faith in that the older Brahma, in order to maintain the respect of the younger, no, the older, the younger Brahmana, who was, in order to maintain the respect of the elderly Brahmana who had offered his daughter in marriage, he saw trouble because the elderly Brahma came from a very aristocratic family and he came from a lower class family. So although the Brahmana had spoken that I will give my daughter to you, he was doubtful he was a bit concerned about how the family might take it. So he asked, to maintain the respect of the Brahmin, that they make that they pronounce that in front of the deity. As we know, they did. So then we know the story. Then they go back to the village. And it seems like the young Brahmin is a bit curious because there's been no forthcoming suggestions of a marriage or a meeting between with the daughter of the elderly Brahmana, as was promised in front of the deity. So anyway, he went to that place, and of course, when the mother and the family members came to know of the Brahman's promise, they were shocked. They were completely outraged. Even the wife threatened to commit suicide. I will commit suicide if you give my daughter to that man in that family, etc., etc. Then the brother. Now this is the point. Then the brother. He was worshipping deities. I mean, they had deities in their village, they had deities in their home, but he was an offensive worshipper. He thought of the deity just as stone. So there, I forget who said it, but then he said, okay, all right, so if you promised in front of the deity, okay, so why don't you bring the deity here? So he was being sarcastic, in one words. He was making a joke. You fool, that you made a promise in front of a lump of stone? What does that matter? Okay, but they'll prove it's a lump of stone and it doesn't have any meaning. Why don't that deity come here if he's really a deity? And then we know the story that the younger Brahman, or they go back to the deity and they explain the situation. And the Lord says, well, how can I go? I'm a deity. Deities don't walk. And what did he say? You know what he said? If you can
talk, you can walk.
Yeah, if you can talk, you can walk. So sorry, going over time a bit. But the point I wanted to bring out here, that story illustrates this point very nicely. Where this person was worshipping deity, but he was an atheist. Didn't believe in a deity. Didn't believe the deity, just thought it was a stone. Where the Brahmanas, the elderly and the younger Brahmanas, had complete faith in the deity. So then, because of that faith, the deity spoke with them, and then the story unfolds. He actually followed the young Brahman back to his village. All right. All right, let's pause there. So this is just the beginning of this discussion on deity worship. Some very interesting points, So thank you for joining us, everyone. We have a few of us here today, but it's been very nice to read this part. So please join us for more Krishna Katha next week, okay? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada, Srimad Brihat. Oh yeah, one thing before everyone leaves. I forgot. I found out some very important information. That all this time we've been reading Brihat Bhagavatamrta, I was thinking that the commentaries are by Gopi Puranadana, but the commentaries are by Sanatana Goswami himself. There's my mistake. Sometimes Gopi Puranadana puts something in, but ostensibly because he wrote a commentary on his own book, and that's what we're reading. All right. So I didn't know that all these months we've been reading Brihat Bhagavatamrta, and I came across that. I thought, wow, okay, that adds another interesting dimension to our reading. So it's just Sanatana Goswami we're reading mainly, and Gopi Puranadana is the translator. And he does give some comments, and he's put where those comments are made. All right, so a little bit of for your information there. Okay. Kontra Srimad Brihat Bhagavatamrta ki jai.
Jai.
Premanande, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.